All right, so today we're going deep, really deep into the Make America Great Again perspective.
Right.
We're to try to understand what makes this movement tick, especially when it comes to things like the government, the economy, even corporations. You sent over some really interesting stuff, and there's this whole idea of a divine plan that keeps popping up.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. It's not meant to be like literal.
Yeah.
It's more like a way of talking, a rhetorical thing they use to give their arguments more weight, more, purpose and justification for their views.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. The Make America Great Again perspective seems to see government overreach everywhere. The COVID-19 pandemic response is a big example to use. Why this deep distrust of the government in this movement?
Well, if you look back, Americans have always been kind of suspicious of too much central authority. Think about the Revolution. The Constitution's focus on individual liberty. These ideas run deep. The Make America Great Again movement is tapping into that.
Makes sense. And the pandemic response really amplified those concerns. You mentioned criticisms of lockdowns and vaccine mandates.
Right. For them, those measures were way over the line, like the government stepping on individual rights and freedoms, especially the freedom to make your own choices about your health, bodily autonomy and all that.
There's also that U.S. House investigative report you mentioned, the one that seems to back up some claims from alternative media about the pandemic response.
Yeah.
How does that fit into the Make America Great Again worldview?
Well, there's this distrust of mainstream narratives in the Make America Great Again movement. They often feel like the media, the government, they're not being straight with people, maybe even hiding something. So this report, it's like proof for them, that their suspicions are right.
It feeds that us versus them feeling.
Exactly, yeah. They feel like they're fighting a system, a powerful establishment that's trying to control the story, silence anyone who disagrees. And this extends to other areas where they see government overreach, like in economic policies, concerns about censorship, even the use of surveillance tech.
Let's dive into some of those, like starting with economics. What specific policies does the Make America Great Again ideology have a problem with?
One of their biggest complaints is about government spending and taxes. They say it's too much, and that's what's causing inflation, the rising cost of living, hitting people right in their wallets.
So they see a direct connection between what the government's doing and the economic struggles a lot of Americans are facing.
Exactly. They point to things like the stimulus packages, certain regulations, as examples of this overreach. They say those things mess up the free market, leading to unintended consequences, like inflation and instability. This is often framed as a critique of what they call Bidenomics, the economic policies associated with the Biden administration.
Can you break down Bidenomics a bit? What specifically do they object to?
Well, they criticize all the spending programs, increased regulation, and what they see as a move away from free market principles. They believe that Bidenomics puts government intervention ahead of individual economic freedom. They say this ultimately hurts businesses, stifles innovation, and leads to higher costs for everyone.
So their solution would be to basically shrink the government's role in the economy. But what about worries about corporate greed, especially with rising prices? And, don't some Make America Great Again? Again, supporters actually propose policies that could be seen as anti-big business.
That's a good point, and there's a tension there. They want a freer market, but they're also worried about corporations getting too powerful and engaging in unfair practices like price gouging, especially in industries like, energy or food.
So it's not just blind support for big businesses. They want them to thrive, but not by, manipulating or taking advantage of consumers, almost like they're looking for a more ethical form of capitalism.
Yeah. You got it. It's often framed in moral terms. They believe free markets, when they're fair, can lead to prosperity and a more just society. And they see the government interfering too much as opening the door for cronyism and corruption, which only helps those at the top, not everyday Americans.
This brings us back to that divine plan idea. It sounds like they see themselves as trying to restore a system where individual freedom and economic fairness are top priorities. Like America's getting back on track, almost like it's meant to be.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. The divine plan idea, it's a powerful way of speaking for the Make America Great Again movement. It suggests their vision for America isn't just about policies, it's about aligning with a higher purpose, making the nation's economic and political life more righteous, more meaningful.
This is really fascinating. We've covered a lot, from their distrust of government to the specifics of their economic critique, but there's still so much more to unpack.
We were talking about the Make America Great Again movement and that whole divine plan shaping their economic views. They want individual freedom and economic fairness, but how do they actually plan to make that happen? What policies are they pushing for?
Well, one thing that comes up a lot in these sources is tax cuts. Big tax cuts. They say the current system is way too complicated and it's holding back economic growth.
Yeah, that's a major point for them. They believe cutting taxes, especially for businesses, but also individuals, will lead to more investment, job creation, and a better economy overall. They often talk about simplifying the whole tax code, maybe even going to a flat tax where everyone pays the same percentage no matter how much they make.
That's a big change from how things work now. Wouldn't that mainly benefit the wealthy? How do they respond to that?
They have this saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. They believe that if businesses get tax cuts, they'll expand, hire more people, and wages will go up for everyone. And if individuals pay less in taxes, they'll have more money to spend, which boosts the economy.
So the idea is, even if the wealthy get a bigger percentage cut, everyone will benefit from the overall economic growth.
Right. They point to times in history when tax cuts led to good economic times. They see it as a way to empower individuals and businesses, create an environment where everyone can succeed.
Okay, so tax cuts are a big part of their economic platform. What else do they propose to achieve this free and fair economy they talk about?
Deregulation is huge for them. They see a lot of government regulations as unnecessary and burdensome for businesses, which drives up costs for everyone and stifles innovation.
What specific regulations do they want to get rid of? What areas do they think the government should be less involved in?
A big one is environmental regulations. They say they're too expensive and prevent us from producing enough energy, especially in the oil and gas industry. They argue that these regulations make energy more costly, which hurts consumers and American businesses.
So they believe rolling back those regulations would make energy more affordable and boost domestic energy production.
Exactly. They talk a lot about energy independence. Not relying on foreign sources, becoming a dominant force in energy.
But wouldn't that hurt the environment? How do they square that with their divine plan, which you'd think would include taking care of the planet?
It's a tricky point, for sure. Their argument is that technology and responsible business practices driven by market forces can protect the environment while allowing for economic growth. They're often skeptical of what they call alarmist environmental rhetoric, saying the free market can find solutions without heavy-handed government interference.
So they're putting their faith in the market to self-correct rather than government mandates.
Exactly. They believe the private sector, motivated by profit and consumer demand, can lead to both a strong economy and a healthy environment.
Are there other industries where they want less regulation?
Oh, yeah. They talk a lot about healthcare and finance. They say regulations in those areas create too much bureaucracy, limit choices for consumers, and increase costs. In healthcare, they want more market-based solutions. In finance, they criticize regulations that they say prevent lending and make it harder for small businesses to get the money they need.
So their approach to regulation across the board is based on this belief that the free market can fix itself and find solutions that benefit everyone.
Yeah, they want the government to step back and let the market do its thing. They think that will empower individuals, lead to new ideas and innovations, and make the economy more dynamic and successful.
We've talked about tax cuts, deregulation. What about government spending? They seem to be really critical of how much the government spends.
Absolutely. They believe that too much government spending leads to inflation, makes the dollar worth less, and saddles future generations with debt. They want a balanced budget, less spending on social programs, and a smaller role for the government overall.
But wouldn't cutting social programs hurt the people who need them most? How do they address that?
They argue that a strong economy where everyone has the opportunity to succeed is the best safety net. They think a thriving economy fueled by lower taxes and fewer regulations will create more jobs and higher wages, which would lift people out of poverty and reduce the need for government assistance.
So their solution to poverty and economic hardship is basically to create a stronger economy through free market policies, rather than relying on government programs.
Yeah, they think relying on the government keeps people trapped in poverty and discourages work. They believe that giving people economic freedom is a better way to address poverty, both in terms of actually helping people and in terms of being fair.
That's definitely a different way of looking at social welfare than we've seen in recent times.
For sure. It's a fundamental shift in thinking about the role of government and the best way to help those in need.
We've covered a lot on the economic side. Let's move on to another big issue for the Make America Great Again movement. Immigration. They want stricter border control, less legal immigration, and a system based on merit. What's behind that stance?
Well, they say uncontrolled immigration weakens national security, puts a strain on social services, and lowers wages for American workers. They're also concerned about people assimilating into American culture and preserving a shared national identity.
So they see immigration as an issue that touches on national security, economics, and even cultural identity.
You got it. They believe immigration should be carefully controlled to protect American interests and preserve a specific vision of American culture and values. They want to prioritize the well-being of American citizens and make sure that immigrants who do come can successfully become part of American society.
This ties back to the divine plan, right? They have this idea of specific destiny for America, and they think things like open borders are getting in the way of that.
Exactly. For them, it's not just about policy specifics. It's about a fundamental vision of what America is and should be. And they see controlling immigration as a key part of protecting that vision.
We've looked closely at their economic policies and their views on immigration. What other key areas does the Make America Great Again movement focus on? We were just discussing the Make America Great Again perspective on immigration and how those views are all connected to their vision for America. It's one thing to have ideas, but how does this movement actually work in the political world? How do they make things happen?
That's where you see the real impact, right? The Make America Great Again movement. It's really changed the Republican Party, challenged the way things have always been done in politics. It's brought a new energy, and a whole different set of priorities to the forefront of American politics.
One of the most noticeable things is how much more polarized politics has become. It seems like Make America Great Again movement has drawn a line in the sand, made things more confrontational.
Absolutely, yeah. They tapped into this feeling, this frustration and alienation among some people who felt like the political establishment wasn't listening to them. They turned that energy into a real political force. But yeah, it's definitely led to more division, sometimes even hostility in our political discourse.
It seems like that makes it harder to find common ground, to actually get things done in a system that's supposed to be about compromise and negotiation.
Yeah.
How do they deal with that? Do they even believe in compromise?
That's the thing, it's complicated. On some of their core principles, like limited government, individual freedom, traditional values, they're very firm, Those are non-negotiables, the foundation for everything else. But on other issues, they might be more open to compromise, to make progress on their bigger goals.
So it's like they're walking this tightrope, trying to stick to their principles while also getting results in the political world.
Exactly. They understand what politics is about what's possible, Sometimes you have to give a little to get a little, but they're careful not to give up on the heart of the movement, those core values that define their vision.
But doesn't that create problems for actually governing? This no compromise approach. Doesn't governing require some flexibility, working with people who have different views?
It's a double-edged sword, for sure. That strong conviction, it gives them a clear purpose, a drive to fight for what they believe in. But it can also make it harder to build consensus, to find common ground, to make lasting changes in a system that's built on collaboration.
So it's this constant tension between conviction and pragmatism, between sticking to your ideals and finding ways to make those ideals work in the real world.
You put it perfectly, yeah. And that tension, it's going to continue to shape how the Make America Great Again movement affects American politics. It makes us think about some really fundamental things, how we govern ourselves, the role of compromise in a democracy, how we handle deep differences in a society as diverse as ours.
It brings up a big question. What does the Make America Great Again movement mean for American democracy as a whole?
It started a really important conversation about some basic issues: the role of government, the balance between freedom and responsibility, what direction we want American society to go in. It's challenged a lot of assumptions, made us think differently about what it means to be an American in this day and age.
Even if you don't agree with their policies or the way they express themselves sometimes, you can't deny they've shaken things up, made us rethink some core issues.
Totally. And that in itself is important for a healthy democracy. It reminds us that democracy isn't static. It's an ongoing conversation, a back and forth of debate, disagreement, and hopefully finding solutions that work for most people.
So wrapping up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway for our listener? What do you hope they come away with after exploring this Make America Great Again perspective with us?
I think the most important thing is understanding. Whether you agree with their ideology or not, it's crucial to really engage with the ideas behind the Make America Great Again movement. To really understand what's shaping our politics, we need to go beyond labels and stereotypes and really try to grasp what motivates them, what they believe in, and why it matters so much to them.
You're right. Understanding doesn't mean you have to agree. You can disagree strongly with someone and still try to understand where they're coming from.
Absolutely. It's about listening, empathizing, trying to see things from different perspectives, even if they make us uncomfortable. That's how we start to bridge the divides that could tear our country apart.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Make America Great Again perspective. It's been a fascinating journey.
It's been great unpacking these complex issues with you. And to our listener, I'll leave you with this. How does the Make America Great Again movement's vision for America line up with your own beliefs or challenge them? What kind of future do you see for our country, and how can we work together, even with our differences, to build that future? Those are questions we should all be thinking about.
Keep those questions in mind and keep exploring. Until next time.